please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Government is committed to providing appropriate liquidity and ensuring that all the financial arrangements are in place for Air India to continue to maintain its operations at world-class level.
Every business proposal will be very seriously looked at, and we will look at that, definitely.
There are hardly any bakras around.
Well, there are no bakras to buy Air India. That was the comment that came in from the former Civil Aviation Minister Ashok Gajapati Raju in August last year. 10 months later, the government has put the privatization of the national carrier on the back burner. The decision comes just 3 weeks after the proposed strategic disinvestment attempt failed to attract any buyers. So why did this attempt fail, and does the government have a plan B? Let's go across now to my colleague Ashpreet Sethi. Ashpreet, what was the government's reasoning for aborting this sale, and is there a plan B that's now being put in place?
Well, what we pick up from sources, in fact, these sources are also part of the alternate mechanism as far as Air India divestment is concerned, is that there were discussions as to how oil prices remain a concern. Now, remember, the EY had also given a report. EY is the transaction advisor for the divestment. In their report, they clearly pointed out 3 main points. 24% stake that the government is holding, that has been a contentious issue. Second, the labor force. And third, the high debt, 33,000 odd crores is what the new buyer will have to take over. These are the concerns which were raised. Based on this, the ministers had a discussion, and it seems like they've put it on hold, saying that they will be getting private players on board as far as reviving the airline is concerned, bring in more money to make it more viable. So we'll have to wait and see what will be the way forward, because plan B, we do understand that the government might be coming out with some sort of clarification as far as the Maharaja's stake sale is concerned.
Okay, so for now, the strategic disinvestment, this was the big one that the government was hoping to get on the road, has been put on the back burner. There is a plan B that's now being put in place for Air India with the possible intention of eventual listing. Joining us now to discuss the fate of Air India is the independent director of the company and BJP spokesperson Syed Zafar Islam, Ashwini Mahajan, representing the Swadeshi Jagran Manch, the economic wing of the RSS, which was opposed to the sale of Air India. Also joining us are 2 experts of the aviation industry, Kapil Kaul of CAPA, Dheeraj Mathur of PwC, and Mark Martin. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here on the show. Zafar Islam, if I could start by asking you, both as an independent member of Air India as well as a spokesperson of the BJP, what seems to have gone wrong? Now, this is what we are given to understand, that potential bidders were not happy with the idea of the government retaining 24%, and that is because previous experiences have caused the apprehension. Look what happened with AZL, look what happened with Balco, look what happened with BSNL. Though these companies have gone on to do well, but the government continues to hold on to that residual stake. Secondly, the high debt burden, as Ashpreet was pointing out, to the tune of about 33,000 crores. Also, we are given to understand that the AirAsia controversy also coloured and muddied waters. What, to your mind, Zafar Islam, has gone wrong with the strategic disinvestment process of Air India?
Sharon, as you may be aware, that there was a transaction banker. The government had appointed a transaction banker for this disinvestment process. I'm sure that the government had also taken into cognizance and all the suggestion made by the transaction manager at that point in time, and the group of ministers have taken a call based on the suggestion made by the experts at that time. Yes, there was no as such response for the disinvestment, we are aware, but there's a feedback from most of the potential player, because they have been interacting, they have been engaging Air India regularly. They were showing a lot of interest. Yet there may be some of the concern they may have, and I'm sure that we are aware what exactly because the feedback from all the potential players have definitely come to us. We, the group of ministers, the government will definitely evaluate all those feedback which we have received, and I do not want to tell on the television what exactly the feedbacks are. But yes, your reporter or you did mention a couple of them. I can't say yes or no, but yes, there are some certain feedbacks we have from the potential bidders that whether these are the concerns they had. And the group of ministers will definitely examine it and come out with something which can work for both the government of India as well as
you're saying
the
you can't,
potential
you
bidders.
can't
But
say
let me tell you
yes
one thing which is very important.
Yes, go ahead.
No, but one thing which I would like to tell you, so these are sometimes people start speculating purely because the debt. We all know that the level of debt in Air India sitting on their balance sheet is something which is very high. But that's not the entire debt was being transferred to the potential bidders. It is something which can the forecasted cash flow can support this kind of a debt servicing only that debt. And it is not us, it is the transaction manager which has actually evaluated based on the numbers which have been provided by the Air India management.
Essentially, Zafar Islam, what I hear from you is, Zafar Islam, is that the transaction advisor has got it wrong. The transaction advisor is to blame for putting out the terms that they did in the expression of interest, which elicited absolutely no interest from anybody, domestic or foreign.
I'm not blaming anyone. I'm not blaming anyone.
Let me ask you a straightforward question.
It is not entirely
is the strategic disinvestment off now? Are you now looking at a plan B, which basically means that you will bring in perhaps lateral entrants into running operations at Air India? The government will infuse more capital, as we've heard from the Minister of State for Civil Aviation, Jayant Sinha, already. What is the plan B now? Is the strategic disinvestment off the table altogether?
No, I won't say that because definitely, as I said, that the feedbacks from the potential bidders are there. Feedback from the transaction manager is there, and the government has its own sources for getting those feedbacks. And also, what is more important for all of us to realize that the growth on top line of Air India has shown a substantial improvement. There is a 22% growth in top line. And if you
yes, but you've also shown a consistent decline in market share. You've also seen a consistent decline in market share. There is no reason that Air India should be losing market share in international operations, given the fact that you enjoy the kind of bilateral rights and the routes that you enjoy. Load factors continue to be below what we are seeing for your peers at this point in time. But let me come back to you in just a second, Zafar Islam. Let me go across to Ashwini Mahajan. Mr. Mahajan, the Swadeshi Jagran Manch was absolutely clear. You were telling the government not to disinvest Air India. It looks like, what you had suggested has come through, because there have been absolutely no takers for this asset today. What is plan B? What are you now going to be recommending to the government?
See, I'm happy that in TV discussions now, the discussion will not be on the disinvestment and failure of disinvestment, things like that. Now, when the government has come out with its plan to regenerate...
They actually haven't come out with a plan. This is, again, source-based information. We are yet to hear from either the Civil Aviation Minister, the Civil Aviation Secretary, or the DPAM department as of now. There is no official confirmation on this so far.
Let me complete.
Yeah.
Officials have said, and that is always the source. Ministers never speak. I'm happy that now they have started talking about the strengths.
Okay.
Earlier, we were talking about the weaknesses of Air India, and it has to be given up, it has to be sold out, it is a burden on the exchequer, it is a burden on taxpayer, and so on and so forth. Let me tell you that the problem of Air India today is a problem which has come from the past regimes. It is not the Air India's problem. It is a political issue, because politically, political decisions were such. We have seen the decisions to purchase and procure aircrafts, the way the aircrafts were procured. Let me complete. Let me complete.
Okay.
You see, don't try to.
I'm only saying, sir, we understand the past, we understand the legacy issues. What I'm trying to ask you now is about the future.
Let me tell you. So let us not give this narrative that it's a burden. If it is a burden on the taxpayer, it is because of the simple reason that the political decisions were such. We have sold out. We have sold out many Dreamliners at throwaway prices because they were drinking a lot of oil. So because of all these reasons, Air India is in this shape as it is now. The thing is,
was the BJP government wrong then in putting Air India up for disinvestment?
Yeah, we have repeatedly said that this way of disinvestment is not good. The disinvestment should have been on the basis of the listing, and it has to be through IPO route.
Okay.
And for that, you see, whenever you sell out by bringing in the strategic buyers, there is always a danger of lack of transparency. You see, you can appoint transaction advisor and advisors and so on and so forth, but transparency would be lacking because you in any case you have to arrive at a figure. Why would
transparency be lacking?
Lacking because of the simple reason that you have to come with a figure. Yes, we are ready with this amount to be decided. But if you bring in IPO, there are international experiences in this regard. You see, you have British Airways. It was in the similar kind of situation in 1981. But they revived it, and after reviving it, they brought the IPOs, and IPO was oversubscribed by 11 times.
So you're happy today?
Yes.
The Swadeshi Jagran Manch is happy today
Obviously,
that the disinvestment process has been put off?
No, we would be happy if they turn it around, bringing in more efficient people to manage this, and also put in money. And because there's a huge cash crunch in today. People in the TV channels, they say that this staff is a burden. Let me tell you, Air India is the only airlines in the country which has got the staff to repair and regenerate the engines. Skills are there, and you have so much of cash crunch that you are sending your aircrafts outside for repair. So you must put in money so that the same kind of whatever skills you have, they are best utilized.
All right, let me get in our other experts. Kapil Kaul, till the last day, you insisted that we would see people putting in their expressions of interest. That was not to be. You then further went on to say that the government must not, in fact, back off, but it must pursue this process aggressively. It looks like that's not going to be the case. The government has, for now, is our understanding, decided to give up on the disinvestment plans. What would your reading be? And also, in terms of Plan B, how easy is it going to be to turn this ship around?
So, Shane, good evening. First of all, very disappointed with government's decision, which almost keep the divestment off the table. Though possibly they would revisit it, but it's not going to be in the near term. So that seems to be quite clear. So overall, very disappointed with the government of India's decision. I thought that if there is any government which could be decisive enough to take a very bold decision, and Air India's divestment is a bold decision, I think it was this government. So honestly, very, very, very disappointed. And I would think that when you look at continuing government ownership with no clear roadmap, and what we were hearing now is that the roadmap has to be prepared. And you prepare a roadmap for a struggling airline with such complex market realities. It's not going to happen in a few months. This is a long drawn process to build a plan, then execute it, and structure it. And given the losses that Air India is having, my assessment, this will lead Air India to extreme insignificance and possibly closure. And it's going to go through a painful process. What we also believe that funding such large-scale losses is grossly unfair to the taxpayer, because we're not talking about a few hundred crores. We're talking about 5,000 to 6,000 crore at a net level every year. government will have to fund those losses. And second, I also believe there's not a perfect timing for Air India's disinvestment. Given the challenges that Air India faces, you have to structure conditions to make this work. And again, repeat, I think if there was any government which could have taken this call, it was this government. So thereby, my disappointment is pretty high because I don't think any other regime taking this forward. I would like to add one more thing.
All right, disappointed.
I would also see this as a reversal of Government of India's earlier stand that an airline with a 10% market share cannot be such a burden. Now there will be a reversal sort of a situation. Two other points very quickly.
Well, we've heard that.
Now,
we've heard the narrative. I'll come back to you, Kapil. In
I want
to
just make one point. Shireen, I just want to...
reversal?
I want to just make one point that now since, we are looking at divestment being off, one of the things should happen is a comprehensive enterprise-wide restructuring, possibly under a special administration. And we have been advocating that special administration for a while so that you can significantly cut down the losses. Right. But maintaining and funding status quo will be unfortunate. If we are going to maintain and keep funding a status quo approach, will be quite unfortunate.
Right. Okay, so maintaining and funding status quo will lead to possibly an eventual closure of Air India. That's the view coming in from Kapil Kaul, and he also sees this as a reversal of government strategy, which is what we heard from Ashwini Mahajan representing the Swadeshi Jagran Manch, that now the focus has shifted to how Air India is not just a drag on the exchequer, but the strategic reasons for why the airline must be kept alive. But let me also go across to Dheeraj Mathur. Dheeraj, Kapil there saying that Air India should be placed under special administration. What we're also given to understand is that from an operations point of view, the government is possibly looking at bringing in external talent. We've got barely a few months now as we get into election season. More capital will have to be infused. So far, the last 12 months has pretty much been status quo, awaiting this disinvestment process to kick off. What's the story going to be for Air India in the context of the fact that you've got significant fleet expansion of all its peers? You've seen a consistent decline in market share, load factors below industry average. What do you see as the future?
Well, unfortunately, it's very difficult to be optimistic at this point of time, to be very frank. I think for the next year, the government will have to pump in more money to cover the losses. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for the airlines to stay afloat. Loss of market share is certainly a matter of concern because it did enjoy a dominant position, at least as far as the domestic airlines were concerned. On the international routes. Yeah. But like the domestic market, it's now started slipping on the international one, which is the more profitable one, of course. So I think in the near future, there are 2 or 3 things that will happen and will have to happen. One, of course, the government will have to continue supporting the losses so that at least operationally it can continue functioning. And of course, it is a fact that in the last couple of years, as far as operations are concerned, before tax and interest, it had started making improvements. So that's the silver lining, and the government will have to one, keep funding it, and second, to ensure that the cost-cutting measures, the operational improvements that have they continue. A third aspect will obviously be that they will have to think in terms of some drastic measures like bringing in outside talent. They have to professionalize the board, have people who understand the airline business be associated with the company so that they can to carry it forward through the next 1 year. And finally, of course, it's no great secret about the issues that confounded the first disinvestment effort. I mean, there were 160 of them, and people had written to the government, and the government did release that list. So you don't really have to go beyond that. It's all there, the high debt, the employee issue, and the fact that government only 26%. So all the issues are out there in the public domain. Everyone knows them. So those have to be addressed, at least the more important ones. And as I've always said, there are three of them that you listed: the debt, the employees, and the. But there's a fourth, and that is the timing. Which is that at this point of time, with 1 year left to go for the election, the government had no option but to put this on the back burner, because even if they had managed to come up with a plan B, they wouldn't have been able to execute it, because given the environment, given the opposition, nobody would take that political risk of committing to the huge, investment that.
So you're saying that you're not entirely surprised by the decision of the government, and the need of the hour is, of course, for the government to continue to infuse capital, drastic cost-cutting measures, bringing in outside talent. Those will be some of the recommendations now that you would propose to the government. Zafar Islam, you've heard what our panel has to say. Let me ask you this as a board member now. What can we expect? Some amount of the cost-cutting measures have already been put in place. What is the thinking within the Air India board today when it comes to route rationalization, when it comes to employee costs, when it comes to taking commercial decisions, just like Indigo, SpiceJet or Air Vistara are taking today?
Well, Sharon, let me explain to everyone on the panel as well as your viewers that what measures the board is taking in last few months, in the few years, keeping primary focus on cost cutting. As you know, all of us are talking about the high interest cost burden, because we are sitting on a high debt in the balance sheet. The large debt is sitting on the balance sheet, so there is a high cost interest cost to be serviced by Air India. So the focus is on reducing the cost, interest cost. So the cost of debt is being reduced, and that is what we are working on. Their second is the focus is on time, because you're talking about the market share. Market share gets impacted when the airlines is not focusing on on-time performance. So OTP, on-time performance, is something which is very, very important, and somehow Air India had slipped over a period of time. We are extremely focused that the on-time performance of Air India should improve, and if you just analyze in last 7-8 months, the performance has significantly improved, and so the top line, and so the business has improved. Where we have got impacted of late purely because the fuel prices have gone up, and that has impacted our bottom line. Certainly, otherwise, there was a significant improvement as far as the top line is concerned. The third focus area is the cargo, because a lot of revenue can be generated through cargo, and something which we have taken measures, lot of measures we have taken to improve these sources of revenue, and cargo is one of the sources of revenue which needs to be improved. And it's
outside talent, Zafar Islam, are you looking at bringing in outside talent to run the airline? People who understand the aviation business. Are you now looking at bringing in people who understand the aviation business to run Air India?
Coming to you. Let me just explain. So we have some talented people we have identified. We have put them in different locations across the globe to improve this cargo business. If you see, the growth in cargo business is again something which we need to remain focused, because that will definitely improve our top line further. Fourth focus is, of course, some talented people need to be assisting the management, and that's why the chairman has been empowered to hire few top talented people by the board. Board has empowered chairman to have at least 5 top talented people who
by when will these people be appointed? By when will they be appointed?
The process on. The process is on. I said that the board has already given its consent to the chairman that he must appoint 5 people, and those should be the domain experts, and that will definitely help further in improving the overall performance of Air India. So their focus is in improving the performance away from the disinvestment process, which is anyway underway. But as long as the disinvestment does not happen, it's a going concern, and we must focus to improve the performance. That is the motto of the management. And of course, I must tell you that even the current managing director, the chairman of the company, is an extremely talented guy. And he is not only putting a lot of sincere effort, but also taking the employees together in improving the overall performance of the company.
Sure. Sure. Let me go across to Martin now for an international perspective. Martin, what do you believe has been the main reason for why the Air India sale was aborted before it even took off? And secondly, add to the list of recommendations that we've heard on this show. We've heard about these previously. There have been several committees that have made these same submissions on how you could turn the fate around for Air India. What do you make of how this story is played out?
Hi, good evening, Shireen. Thanks for having me today. Let's quickly recap where Air India is and where it was 4.5 years back. Now, Air India till 2011-12 was in operating profits, and we know their financials because the same government in 2014 applauded Air India for their outstanding their operating revenues and their operating income. So till then, I think we were fine. But I think we have to understand one fact that an airline the size of Air India, this huge monolith organization with this tremendous amount of asset and asset base, is not going to be disinvested and privatized overnight. I think the writing was on the wall that you cannot disinvest and privatize an airline this large. I mean, British Airways, it took them 10 years to get disinvested and privatized. The process started in 1984 with Margaret Thatcher and ended with Tony Blair in 1999, So, you're not going to privatize an airline this large in 1 year. And there's no way that any government can look at this as a election success for 2019. So I think we've got to be very mindful of the fact that what is it that we want from a privatization of Air India? The key point is Air India privatization should lead to Air India being strengthened and more powerful in the market today, because Air India sits on bilateral flight rights and a network which is comparable to none, okay? And the whole approach to Air India is not a garage sale that we were thinking of in the past. So coming up on where we are today, I think the key solution is, we need to let Air India stand on its own 2 feet, let it get some revenue in, let its bank accounts get a little cash heavy. It needs wallet. It needs some money in its wallet before you can get out in the market and find a suitor for it. And I think the key part is Air India has the right fleet, because I couldn't help notice the gentleman earlier who said that the 787 Dreamliner is a fuel-burning aircraft. I mean, the 787 has lowered their fuel burn by 30%. So, and we have to understand that there's no airline comparable, at least in India. Indigo doesn't own its aircraft. Every aircraft in Indigo's fleet is leased. Every aircraft in Air India is leased. Air India has real estate and property which is owned, so it's a completely different ballgame. Yes, if you want to start privatization, we go the BA route. Let it take 10 years, you'll get there. You're going to get there. It's a game plan. But you cannot look at it like a 6-month target where you're going to sell it, because the propensity for any investor today is not going to have, you're looking at raising 50 to 60,000 crores from Air India. And nobody out there today has 10 to $11 billion lying in his purse, okay? He's going to go to banks. He's going to go to financial markets. And financial markets and banks today are not in a position to fund an acquisition that large. And I think we know the transportation business on the risk today. Oil prices are going up. Currencies are getting slammed. U.S. trade reserves are stepping in. You got U.S. Trade sanctions on China. Aircraft parts are going to go completely nuts in the next couple of weeks. You got a trade embargo with
there's plenty on the challenging side that you point out, Mark, and rightfully so. And maybe it was an unrealistic expectation to see this disinvestment process go through over the next 6 months.
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely badly
We're unfortunately
timed,
running out of time, gentlemen. Badly timed and unrealistic in terms of the timelines as well. Ashwini Mahajan, we've got exactly 30 seconds. Sorry, Mark, we've got exactly 30 seconds. Your top 3 recommendations now to the government. I know you're going to be writing a fresh letter to them. What will your top 3 recommendations be?
Yeah, we are coming out with a report. We would suggest that new management be invoked, more efficient people be invoked. At the top level, there is a huge crowd there. So many general managers without having approval of the government. They were appointed, so they should be cut down. And we must look at the history also, how the SATs was brought in. SAT should be out, and staff
pruning, rationalization
at the top level.
Okay.
That should be done, and it has got a better, very good future because of the brand equity, because of the engineering talents, because of the landing rights, because of the air slots and routes the Air India has got. So I must tell him, because what I was telling was Dreamliner, which were wrongly purchased and they were sold to Etihad at a throwaway prices. That was my point.
Okay. So those are going to be your key recommendations in your report to the government. Unfortunately, we're out of time, gentlemen, completely out of time. Zafar Islam, Ashwini Mahajan, Mark Martin, Kapil Kaul, as well as Dheeraj Mathur. Appreciate you joining us here on this special edition to decode